Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Dr. Soul Brother coming to you again with what I think is an important program. Hit the likes, hit the subscribe button. Tell me what you like, dislike, agree, disagree with, etc. What I want to talk to you about is Sha'Carri Richardson. Was it Sha'Carri? Sha'Carri Richardson, Sha'Carri Richardson, something like that, who did very well in her heats and in winning on the track field. One of the reasons why I want to discuss her for two reasons. Number one, we want to look at where she is now compared to where she was 2 years ago, even a year ago. And she's come a long way and has morphed in on a positive tip. And I also want to address those people who were throwing shade on her 2 years ago or even a year ago. Um, all I can say is read it and weep. Read it and weep. She did very well. She has grown, matured, etc. But aside from her maturity, I want to address some of the people who wanted to look at her and be very critical and be very, um, I said, throw shade on her. First of all, you have to look at the fact that she was going through some things as a result of losing her mother suddenly. Um, and of course, we know what happened what caused her to be disqualified as it related to the Olympics in 2021. Um, that's understood. It's also clear that um, she was looking in ways that were not deemed as acceptable to people, and there are people who are even critical of her name. I just find it interesting that people will be critical of her name as is it Sha'Carri or Sha'Carri, whichever, and refer to that as a quote unquote ghetto name, but yet you can look at somebody who runs for the Jamaica team named Sharika Jackson. No shade to her, but I'm making a point. You can look at her name and give her a pass. Oh, but I forgot she's not the American Negro. I'm sorry. That's what we're dealing with. And for people who are overlooking the fact that when she's running, um, she was giving it her all. And the thing is that right now we're at a point where people have grown accustomed, and this is not something that it was always the case. This is something in recent years, and if I had more time I'd go into it. But here's the deal. There was a point that I can remember, even going back to the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles, which is almost 40 years ago. It was not uncommon for fellow black Americans to be rooting their uh, for black Americans, I should say, to be rooting their fellow black Americans on the track. Remember people like you had runners like Carl Lewis, you had runners like Evelyn Briscoe Hooks, you had uh, Edwin Moses and others whose names I can't think of right now, who were very good, excellent runners and representing. Um, then I remember even in the 1992 games, 1996 even, there was a black bookstore in Los Angeles, and there were people who were cheering on um, Gail Devers. You remember even back in the day, people were cheering on FloJo. Um, Somehow there was a shift, and there's a reason for this shift. But again, I'm not going to go too deep into it right now because of limited time. But all of a sudden, you have this thing. Well, actually, it wasn't all of a sudden. It was a gradual thing where people have been shamed and guilted. Black folk, that is, have been shamed and guilted as it relates to representation on the field and also with the American flag. Now, I noticed that when Sha'Carri won, and it took a minute, but then it's kicked in that she actually beat the other. She came in first and beat some of the other runners from Jamaica and elsewhere. That she was very excited, and then she was running around with the American flag. Well, I noticed that when the two runners representing Jamaica were with their flag, and I noticed that all three of them embraced each other, and they were photographed. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, it's interesting. You can be applauded, saluted for representing the country that you come from, um, whether it's France, Jamaica, etc. Um, and then you, as a black person in the United States, representing, because the fact of the matter is, you represent the country where you're from, unless, of course, you become a naturalized citizen of another society. But Shikari did very well. She represented her community. She represented her country, etc. Why would she or any other black runner from America, be shamed and guilty as it related to um, uh, representing America as well as the American flag? How can you, in good faith and good conscience, um, say or suggest that when you're representing the United States on the world stage, that somehow you are in agreement with those American policies, be they foreign or domestic, that are not good? That has nothing to do with representation. Because the fact of the matter is, once you leave America and go elsewhere outside of these borders, believe it or not, you are representing America. If no more than when you open your mouth, they can tell that you're an American, not to mention your disposition, etc. That's all cultural. And these are the kind of things that need to change. Um, People need to give this woman, this sister, grace again. And when the black commentator interviewed her, and Murphy noticed, when one of the white commentators wanted to speak to her, she said no, thank you. So she spoke to the black person or black media. And when he asked her about when how did she think that she got the respect of the Jamaicans, the excellent answer she gave was what? She got the respect of herself, and that's what counts. Excellent answer. Excellent answer. Because it goes beyond Jamaicans or anybody else she was competing against. Okay. And so she was representing well her community and her country. And not only that, before this race, there was another race where she was wearing her wig and discarded it right there on the track. In many ways, when you look at Shikari, you're looking at what? Similar to what we saw in the movie The Wiz, where the scene where the people who were working for the bad witch, the evil witch, Eveline, when Eveline was killed, they were shredding themselves of their ugliness and were singing the song, Can You Feel a Brand New Day? Well, for Sha'Carri Richardson, when she took off her wig, that became a metaphor where I'm coming into my new self and I'm feeling a brand new day. So this is a brand new day for Shakari, but not only is it a brand new day for her, this needs to be a brand new day for us as a community. Why do I say that? Because of this. We have the Olympics in less than a year from now in Paris, France, in 2024. We need to support our black runners like we used to. And no one understand this. When people like Jesse Owens and others who ran for the United States, they were on the world stage. Make no mistake, the very society that those young women who were running against Shakari and other people and others outside in the diaspora. Because remember now, during the time of Jesse Owens, which is 1936 Olympics, there were no Caribbean runners, none. Well, guess what? If you were Jesse Owens, if you were Joe Louis, if you were Althea Gibson, if you were Sugar Ray Robinson, you were on the world stage and you were their heroes. Okay. And even when they began to compete on the world stage, those throughout the diaspora, you were still viewed as heroes for the black world. That was what happened with um, Muhammad Ali when he was the heavyweight champion of the world. The black world saluted him. Well, that is somewhat shifted. And the reason why it has shifted is because, unfortunately, There are a lot of black people in America who have been convinced that they should be ashamed and they should be shamed and guilted as it relates to their American identity. Well, that needs to change like immediately. And we need to return to what folks were doing back in the day. And lastly, I'll say this. It's interesting to note that when it comes to that whole thing about shamed and guilted, well, America's policies, America's domestic policies, and America's racial strife and whatnot. Let me say this. In every society on the planet, there are contradictions. Let me say that again. In every society, there are contradictions. And yet, in those societies where there are contradictions, none of those people are shamed and guilted of their identity of whatever nationality they are. We know that there are uh, contradictions in every society, and those runners who represented the countries that they came from um, represented with great pride, did they not? It's reflected when you look at the people in the stands and you saw the Jamaican flags, you saw the French flags, you saw the Holland flags, etc. In spite of those ills that exist in those societies that existed and continue to exist, those people are allowed, I can't stress that enough, allowed to exhibit pride in their nationality. It is only the black folks on this in these United States that have been shamed and guilted. And the main ones who are guilty of shaming and guilting them are fellow black Americans. And many of them are of the quote unquote conscious community, etc. So those kind of things need to change and change immediately. So when we get ready for the Olympics in 2024, the same uh, pride that existed back in the day for our runners and other athletes needs to return. We saw what happened with Noah Lyles. We saw what happened with Sha'Carri Richardson and others who were doing very well on the world stage and made us proud and should continue to make us proud. We are not going to hide our American identity under a bushel. I'm going to say that again. We are not going to hide our American identity under a bushel, period. And anybody, I'm putting you on notice right now, anybody who attempts to do that, you'll be sorry. You will get a severe tongue lashing for this. So, to our sister Shakari, we're very proud of you. You represented well. Keep doing what you're doing. Tune out the naysayers like you're tuning out noise from a freeway. Okay? Just know and understand that. And know and understand, Shakari, that what you're doing is very important, and you are serving as a role model for those who may not recognize you as such yet, but that is very real. You are in the tradition of Flojo, of Wilma Rudolph, of many others who came before you. You are on the and you represent Black history. You represent American history. You helped to make some changes, and we will be watching you and looking at your metamorphosis. And by the way, when you removed your wig, and we really see how gorgeous you really are. And in many ways, whether you realize it or not, Shakari, what you're doing, what you've done is helped to do what was done back in the day, and that is when black people were coming into our identity during the 1960s. We're changing our hair, changing the way we looked at ourselves, the way we thought about ourselves in a positive way. And that had an impact on the world stage, by the way. A lot of black folks in the diaspora were taking cues from black America. And that's one of the cruel ironies of some of these folk in the conscious community who want to throw shade on the American identity. And see, the thing is this, we need to be very clear that when that was happening, we were casting off um, those things that made it's like the song by the Staple Singers. I like the things about me that I once despised. Well, when that was happening, other black folk throughout the diaspora, including some Africans, were taking cues from black America. So no, um, great day. That was a great day, great moment, and we want to encourage our sister to keep the momentum up. And we also want to say to fellow Black Americans, we need to return to what we did before. And anybody who wants to try to um, encourage us to hide our American identity under a bushel. No, no, that day is done. We will not tolerate that. And it was a great thing seeing Sha'Carri with those two Jamaican sisters. They were representing their flag. They had their flags around them, and she had the American flag around her. And what that was showing was what? Hey, um, uh, a thing where, unlike what some people would want, well, they're allowed to have their flags, but we shouldn't have our flag because this is not our country, and and all of that. And what people don't understand is when you do that, when you succeed in shaming, guilting Black America of our identity, of our nationality, and all the rest of it, again, that is music to these white supremacist ears. And when they see and hear us doing that, all they're laying in the cut saying, yes, that's exact because they're the ones who say this is a white man's country. And so um uh when let's say, well, I'm not gonna be up there with the American flag, what are you saying? I don't have a country, I don't have an identity. And also what you're saying or suggesting is this: you guys have a flag. You guys have an identity, but we don't. And what that does, that or what, believe it or not, that helps to further embolden those who came, um, those from those other societies. That's what it does. It helps to further embolden them with their chauvinism, with their chauvinism. So again, let us support our sister, salute her, and wish the best for her, and hope and pray above all that she continue on the path where she is. And if there's any thing that goes awry, that we lift her up and encourage her to aim for the stars. So, on that note, this is Dr. Soul Brother signing off. Again, if you hit the like button and hit the subscribe, okay? Thank you very much. And until the next time, God bless.